Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Seraphim Space live webinar on the Seraphim Space Accelerator Alumni Highlights. Since its inception, the Seraphim Space Accelerator has accelerated 109 space companies from over 30 countries. And here to tell us a little bit more about the success of the alumni today and about the trends, results, and his expectations for 2025 is Accelerator Program Manager, Alessandro. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Leah. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here and share more about our startups, our alumni, and kind of key stats for anyone participating, either investors, corporates, or just general and potential applicants.
Great. Thanks for joining me today. And in addition, I'm super excited to welcome to the webinar a very special guest today. We have Dr. Katie King, who is the CEO of BioOrbit, and she was part of Mission 12 cohort of the Accelerator. And BioOrbit is a company that's building a pharmaceutical factory in microgravity to revolutionize cancer treatment. It's super exciting, but I'll let Katie tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Leah, and hi, Alessandro. Really good to be back and speak with you today.
And Katie and Alex will be thrilled to take all of your questions. We're going to go through this in a little bit of a Q&A style fashion. Alex is going to share with you some slides. But if you have any questions for the guys, just post them in the chat, please. And then we'll pick them up along the way if relevant, or we'll get to them at the end. But Alex, we'll go to you first. The accelerator companies have had some exciting announcements of late. Can you discuss the cumulative investment raised by all of the companies in the alumni at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the last few months have been very, very busy for us, which is great. And so I came prepared and I created some slides because I know people like statistics and I like numbers.
We love them.
And so if we can bring those up. So I wanted to just kind of start with this table, which kind of says a bit about the story of the Seraphim Space Accelerator, kind of where we started, kind of investment raised every year, and kind of how fast that has grown. So on the far right side, we can see we have received a total end of last year. We reached 633 million. Which is quite impressive because within just 12 months, the alumni companies have been able to raise $200 million, which is a first for us. That is 57% an increase from the year before, and more than a 4x increase from pre-pandemic levels. Knowing that actually the numbers of deals haven't really increased, we just have had 24 companies that have raised funding. But the amount or the average deal size has increased by a lot, which means the companies have started to transition from that seed stage and pre-seed stage to more kind of that growth stage of a Series A. And I'll talk in more detail into that with the next slide. So with the next slide, I divided the data according to kind of the different round types, because I know people, data nerds like me like to get into that. So kind of divided into kind of pre-seed, seed, pre-series A, Series B, and venture debt rounds. Primarily focusing on how many rounds there have been, but I wanted to really emphasize the average deal size and how much has been raised in US dollars. So we had $160 million worth of Series A last year across 9 different companies. And as well as seed rounds, about $20 million worth of seed rounds with an average size of 2.6 million across 8 different companies. So that is actually quite unique for us, because that really shows that now what we were supporting that were very early stage companies have now grown into proper growth stage companies with their Series A.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Tell everyone what was the first year of the Accelerator started, so they can just see the growth in real time.
Yes, so the Accelerator actually started in 2018, really focusing on, I guess, having a bit more of a background, focusing on supporting the best-in-class startups across the space tech sector and help them with raise their next level of funding. So the company comes through our program. We do the program twice a year, and the program lasts about 13 weeks. So within this program, we teach the companies how to go out and raise investments. So first of all, how to get that value proposition out, how to explain things appropriately to investors, because a lot of the times the founders have a very deep technical expertise, all leading to that skill set that is necessary to develop that pitch deck and get this story across to investors. So then we do a mini roadshow. We bring companies out to our offices in the US, across Europe, and kind of we showcase them as much as possible, helping them raise. So we started in 2018, where really we have been at the forefront of supporting kind of the new space economy, where we have clearly seen a massive raise in data, and the data that is used by these companies to go out and raise. So since then, it is actually quite interesting to see that we have been able to go up that far. I think if we go into the next slide, I wanted to just bring up the division by investments, because we release every year and every quarter our index. So I highly suggest people to go and check that out. But what's interesting is that for the last year, we actually had more European companies going out on raise compared to American, which is yay for Europe, because I look after Europe. But yeah, I think key companies to kind of talk about. I mean, we had kind of a few outliers where we had Satellite with a venture debt kind of raise of 31 million. We had Starfish, we had SatView, Zona, and Isuprint kind of raising for their expansion into China, and Constellation Global as well, which is actually our Mission 14 company. So our latest cohort that we just finished, that was able to raise actually during the program for their implementation of their constellation. So I think this kind of clarifies and kind of gives a pretty good overview of what has been going on within the sector.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And as Alex mentioned, I am here, everyone, by the way, but technicalities has happened. I don't know. My camera has, for some reason, this has never happened before, has cut out, but hopefully everyone can still hear me. Don't need to see me anyway. I'm not the important one on the show. But yeah, Alex, that's really fascinating. And as Alex mentioned, our index that we actually released our latest Q4 2024 last week, and that's, you can find that on our website, and it's really, really fascinating data coming from there. So Katie, let's go over to you. I'm sure everyone's really eager to hear a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about, where you are, a little bit about BioOrbit at the moment?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, thank you very much again for having me. So I'm Katie, co-founder, CEO of BioOrbit. And at BioOrbit, we are building a pharmaceuticals factory in microgravity to change the way in which cancer treatments can be given to patients. So this is all about the superior crystallization process that takes place in space versus on Earth, and what that can bring to cancer treatments. So you've probably seen it on here, people speaking about the beneficial protein crystallization in space, and that's been shown time and time again on the ISS. And what that means for drugs, and particularly cancer treatments, is that through forming crystals of certain drugs, you can then form really concentrated doses. So you can change a drug from something that you need to inject in the vein to something that you can inject straight under the skin, just like diabetics inject with insulin. So that's what we're trying to bring about, is for cancer patients to be able to inject themselves rather than having to go to hospital, and that decreases the burden on hospitals, etc. But for that, you need space to get the quality of crystals, because gravity just screws it up here on Earth. So we're building the hardware to mass manufacture those crystals in space so that we can use them back here on Earth. So that's what we're building. In terms of like where we're at, we've got our proof of concept mission going up later this year to the ISS, which is really, really exciting. We've been moving very fast and delivered our first payload last November to fly with the exploration company again later this year. So it's a busy year for BioOrbit.
That's super exciting. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. It's proper. People think, it's science fiction, and but it's happening right now, and I think that's what makes it even more exciting. So if anyone's got any questions for Katie on that, please post them in the chat, and she'll be happy to answer. We'll hear more from Katie in a moment, but Alex, we'll just go over to you. At the moment, you've got Mission 15 about to launch. You're taking applications. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Applications close end of this week on Sunday, actually. So We have 2 application links, let's say, for people to register. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go on our website. You will find all of the links. Applications are very quick to complete. And we have 1 US application link, one Americas, one for the rest of the world. And they close on Sunday for the Americas at midnight Pacific time, and for the rest of the world at London midnight Sunday.
Great. Can you tell everyone a little bit about the taxonomies that you're seeing in this cohort? Who's joining this time? What's exciting?
Yes, thank you for the question. I thought we would go over this question because I always get asked this question: is what are you guys looking for? Are you looking for upstream companies? Are you looking for downstream companies? What are you guys all about? So I thought that I'd just put in a couple of charts to show that we look at the entire ecosystem. So I think just to mention that last year we had a couple of firsts. So in terms of geography, we had our first Turkish company, our first Saudi Arabian company, our first Chilean company. So now we are truly global. I mean, we have supported companies across 30 different countries. So we don't really have any limitations on that side. But if we bring up some of the slides that I did. So looking at, thank you. So we have 109 companies that have come through the program. And this is the division. So it's pretty evenly split across upstream and downstream, as well as the in-orbit servicing. So then with the next slide, I put this actually into, let's say, a bar chart, let's say, to show kind of cumulative by year, which shows really the growth of the in-space economy. So how we have been there since kind of mission 6, 2020. So that's the yellow that you can see growing and kind of popping up here and there. So it became first opportunistic to now it's a key part of our portfolio and what we look at for every cohort every year, because there is always companies such as BioOrbit and such as many others, which is way above and way beyond what we see normally, but at the same time are a bit of a wild card that we really like, and we really look forward to see what they're about to do and where they're going. Yes, this clearly shows kind of where we are, what we have done, and where we're going. Yes.
Great. What's particularly exciting you?
I think what's exciting is that we never know. So I think what is exciting is that we cannot really predict the applicants that we have. We cannot really predict the let's say the quality of applications on one side, but we cannot really predict who is actually going to be participating in the program, because the quality changes drastically every year. What we're seeing more so in certain cohorts, we saw more climate tech focused cohorts because that was going on. Last year we had way more AI, more quantum, more pharma, and more big data. We had more kind of in-space R&D, which made it very, very interesting. Whereas a couple of years before we had completely downstream or completely upstream, which is interesting.
And in terms of geographies, you're seeing just new countries every cohort, aren't you? Every year, which is fascinating and great to see.
Yes, we try to see if we can support. So space tech by itself is a global industry. It's just more difficult to raise in certain geographies, but we're seeing that that's really changing, because there is strong interest in any country in the world really to develop their national capabilities. And so they're really going strong in supporting their local ecosystem of startups, their local universities, and kind of trying to create that new space economy just for their own national capability. And that has allowed us to go out and kind of find really the best in class startups from those countries, from the region most of the time. That is different from what you usually find in other accelerators, or just like people didn't know that was an option. And so we're always excited to kind of find those companies and showcase them to the entire world if we can.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Great. Thank you, Alex. Katie, we'll go over to you, and so you can touch on your speciality here. So given the rapid advancements in space exploration that we're seeing and its potential applications for life sciences, what unique opportunities do you see for startups in this space, and how can they position themselves to capitalize on these trends, and how can they get to where you are and get to where BioOrbit is today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of things coming into the question. One of the things that's opened up a lot of opportunities is how the infrastructure is changing. So, SpaceX obviously bringing that launch cost down, but it's also the re-entry vehicles coming in and then commercial space stations later down the line. That means that there are different ways that you can use microgravity, and it's more accessible than it was previously. And we've only had currently have the ISS, but that's all changing. In terms of life science in space, I think it's very important to make the distinction of life science for space and life science for Earth in terms of the use cases and what you're testing. So where we sit is in life science for Earth, which is what I'm very interested in. And I think that's where a lot of the markets are currently. And I think there are a couple of sectors to look at within life sciences. One of them is in terms of drug development and accelerated disease modeling. So in space, disease spreads differently. You can have an accelerated disease model in space. So if you find a drug that can slow it down in a space environment, then it should be able to slow it down here on Earth. And one of those as well is in organoid production. So organoids are more similar to our organs, like naturally. And so if you can do drug development using these organoids, then if you're successful with an organoid, you're more likely to be successful with a human. And currently, when you're going through that drug development, which is so expensive, there are so many fails because the models that we're using are so different compared to the human that they're made to be used in. So this is where space can really come into and help out. However, for that, that's that's the next step away. Before that, you hit manufacturing, which is what we're in, drug manufacturing in space for use on Earth. And that is a very lucrative step in and of itself before you get to the use of organoids, etc. So that is really the next obvious step in terms of, making these drugs in space and using them on Earth before you get another degree of complexity, which is making organoids in space and then using them on Earth. So I think it's really exciting time because we have this access that we didn't have before. And I think it's going to start looking a bit different. So startups, etc. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more space bio startups coming into play, and I'm very excited about that, developing payloads that then can go in these re-entry vehicles where you don't need astronauts, because currently you go to the ISS and it's designed with an astronaut in mind. But it's really, I think, if you're interested in starting a startup and you're listening, then I'd say, think about the different bits of infrastructure and making something that doesn't require astronauts, because it's going to be very exciting.
That is super exciting. Thank you so much, Katie. You touched on it slightly, but what do you think the biggest challenges are in securing funding for these potential companies coming up?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, are you a space company doing bio, or are you a bio company that uses space? And it's going to start becoming more like you're a bio company that utilizes space. And I really hope that that's where it goes, and that space is just an environment. But for that, you need to then have bio investors on board, etc. And then what bio investors typically want is quite a lot of proof points before you go for your seed round. And if you're to get the data for your seed round as a space bio company, you need to go to space to get that proof point, which requires a more capital to get to that initial proof point. So I'd say that it's important, if you're in that space bio part, then you've almost got another round of milestones that you need to hit before you fit into a typical biotech investment requirements, etc., for each stage. So I think that's a really that's an important bit. And so the question is, well, where does that money come from? Is that grants? Is that from VC? And there are some initiatives in place to bridge that gap if it's not from a grant, and where is it coming from? But I'd say that it's not quite enough yet, and we still need that push to get over the line.
Yeah, so you think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, kind of just really honing, what your mission and what you want to achieve, and then finding what type of investors are the right investors for you.
Yeah, And I think the last thing that I'd say on it is that for startups, it's critical to then to really well define what is it that you need to achieve in order to get to that like next round of funding, and how much is it going to cost, etc. You know, what do you need to show to get those biotech investors on board for your next round, and be really, really clear in your mind as to how you're going to do it.
And is there a way you can prove proof of concept on Earth, and then is that what you do? Yeah,
it really depends on the use case. So for some, parabolic flights might be sufficient, or drop towers, or the random positioning machines that can kind of simulate microgravity. For some use cases, that is sufficient, and for others, it's not. For us, it's not, because we need long times of microgravity to allow these crystals to form. So for us, we do have to go to space to get there. Others, it will be different.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Are there any particular breakthroughs or developments that you're most excited about personally?
I mean, everything with the manufacturing side, that's really where I'm going. Obviously, I'm biased in that sense. So I'd say, like, when it comes to manufacturing, you have to think about scale, and scale hasn't been done in space yet. So anything along those lines, I'm very excited about. And whenever pharma are starting to use space for their development as well. So I get very excited when I see those non-space sectors utilizing space, because I mean, that's what the future is, like getting the money and tapping into non-space markets and bringing that into the space sector. I think that we're on that edge at the moment. So yeah, I get excited with anything on that bridge.
Yeah, totally with you know, we see that just so often at Seraphim. We're super excited about kind of the end user now of space tech, where you know every single industry on the planet is being touched by this. So, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's very
yeah, you mentioned it, you touched on it a little bit, but what about making this sustainable and scalable? Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. And this is something that's really exciting. I really think we're going into a new era of the space industry, and this is to do with the infrastructure that's available. So, you know, for our use case, we do need to have a lot of cadence and a lot of like mass going to and from orbit, and that previously hasn't been possible. So, and that we want that to be in a sustainable manner, obviously. So it's really exciting to see these different companies, other companies, building these re-entry vehicles and technology that is greener, that is more sustainable, because those are the ones I think that, like, as pressure would come to us, it's like, all right, well, we want to pick someone that's very sustainable and it might be more green than another. So I think that's going to be really critical for the future. And in terms of scaling, again, it comes down to the infrastructure. So having re-entry vehicles that can take a lot of mass into space and bring it back down. But also for us, it's about the commercial space stations as well. So having permanent facilities in space where we can then have our manufacturing plants, etc., and then just replenish reagents. That's what we're like moving towards. So yes, I think that in terms of scale and sustainability, we're not quite there yet, but it's just around the corner. It's nearly there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Alex, you've seen lots of companies touching on that through the Accelerator program. Like I was thinking, like Auriga came to mind, like different launch solutions. You know, you're seeing so much innovation, which is absolutely fascinating, and touching all of these different areas of the ecosystem. Alex, back to you. The funding environment, not just for life science, as Katie said, but all startups can be unpredictable. How have you seen investor attitudes towards life science startups over the past few years? And where do you see funding opportunities becoming more robust in the near future?
Yes, I mean, we have been seeing a very big change in kind of interest from investors. So first of all, it's important to understand that 99.999% of investors do not invest in space tech or haven't considered of investing into space tech, but that is rapidly changing now. I think kind of talking about the point around pharma, I'm originally from Switzerland, and working in space tech and coming from Switzerland, this makes it very exciting, because everyone that I know that works in pharmaceuticals or healthcare, it's the next frontier for them. Realistically, they're always very interested in what they can do in terms of IP, the level of R&D, and just makes it far more exciting for a very large corporate to spend money and find new opportunities develop the research and the drugs and support the overall growth of the space sector. That to the side for one moment. So in terms of what we're generally seeing is that, of course, space tech is it's by definition was built as kind of a dual use kind of industry, so that there's always that angle. But we're seeing lots of interest in terms of analyzing energy, environment, agriculture, maritime, which are kind of the usual key ones. But there is drastically more interest into what can we do, first of all, in terms of pharma, as we have been talking about, but quantum, AI, big data, data centers, figuring out how we store it, how we use it, how we support it, kind of the whole kind of industry around it, and all the whole in-orbit servicing around it. So that's something that we're seeing that is much more interesting for investors to look into, and we're getting approached by investors that are looking into the stuff because that's kind of fits their investment thesis, number one. It fits into kind of what they're looking to do, and helps them get themselves in a position where they can actually look at a relatively proven, let's say, business model while having to look at doing things in space. That's just the difficulty and the change. But that makes it very, very interesting for them. And so we keep getting a lot of interest from the ecosystem in general, and to learn more about startups from both of our network and alumni, but also the companies that we have seen and are in our portfolio that we have invested in, and etc.
Yeah, great. Where are you? Obviously you're always looking to meet new investors. So if there's any VCs or anyone listening who has been unsure about getting involved in investing in space tech, then please give Alex a call or an email. He's happy to chat to you. So what do you think, Alex, just on that a bit further, what do you think was putting off people before getting it? Is it kind of how capital intensive it is, or is it just them not having enough knowledge? Like what do you feel is stopping people getting involved in the space tech investing?
I think few areas. So one of them is the commercialization of space. So the government has always been kind of the largest supporter of the industry, so it wasn't as sustainable, whereas that's changing very quickly with the new space economy, because there is much more kind of commercial traction between different companies that is happening. So that's changing compared to 10, 20 years ago. I think one of the things I always put off investors was the requirement of investment requirements versus the milestones. When can I get a return? And so they're actually starting, a lot of investors that have joined this industry early on have started to see that. And so people are kind of feeling left out in the game, which kind of puts a little bit of hurry for people to join, which is great for us and kind of the startups that are part of our accelerator. But at the same time, I think there has been a change of investor mindset towards the industry, where really has been, this is happening, so we're either on board or we're left behind. And so this is what makes them very interested, as well as, I guess, the part that a lot of capital owners or managers grew up with Star Trek, Star Wars, and all that sort of stuff. So for them, this is the best thing they could ever invest in.
Katie, I thought you were finished. Yeah, carry on. No, I was going to say, I see you nodding away, Katie. I bet you've got some super interesting stories of people, VCs, investors that you've met, and what people have said to you in your early days.
Yeah, for sure. I think, space is a very inspiring thing. And when we were kids, I mean, wanting to be astronauts, etc. I mean, I'm definitely is one of them. So I think that, it captures your imagination, but it's very much like this is happening. It's not the things that seem sci-fi, like the things we used to watch, is now actually happening. And I think it's really, making that clear that it's not sci-fi, it's now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as we said, we're seeing things actually happening now. We're seeing proof. We're seeing things actually working. We're seeing, and I think that people, the more this continues to happen, the more interest we'll see, which is obviously fantastic for the ecosystem and all of the startups involved. But Katie, would you mind telling everyone a little bit about your experience on our accelerator and how you found it and what you got out of it?
Yeah, of course. So I was in Seraphim Mission 12, which was the late summer in 2023, I think it was now. Yeah, 2023. Thank you, Alex, nodding like yes, that was so at that time was bootstrapping the company, and we hadn't had any investment through at that point. We'd just got into ESA BIC at that point. So European Space Agency have business incubation center. So I think we just started with them then. But yeah, so basically to set the scene of very early stage, no hires, etc. A very small team with an idea, a vision, a mission to make a reality. And so Seraphim were
Did you apply directly, or how did you
say that one more time? Sorry.
Did you apply directly, or how did you?
So I found out about it through the UK Space Agency, so was part of their Accelerator program, and then met Seraphim through one of their pitch days, and so that was how the connection was made. Again, earlier in that summer. So I'd say it was fantastic. They really made us all question the fundamentals of what we were building, and that it rips you down. But that's the best way to build yourself back up stronger. And so I'd say that, it's critical to listen and learn quickly, and really question yourself, and finding those holes to then be like, aha, and then build them up far stronger. So I'd say that it was a fantastic opportunity, and we came out much stronger having been through it. So I'd really recommend it.
Awesome, thank you. We didn't pay her to say that.
Yeah, I promise. I swear. That's really good.
No, so again, as Alex said, he's still taking applications until Sunday. So if anyone's listening wants to get involved, please let us know. There's a few questions coming, Katie, if you don't mind. I'll read it. There's one from Kevin. He is saying, Katie, can you say about a bit more about the timeline to permanent manufacturing structures in orbit?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, again, with permanent manufacturing facilities, we can have permanent facilities, I'd say, as soon as the commercial space stations really come up and running, i.e. having space within their space, and that would be a permanent facility. In terms of, and that would be, what would that be, like 2030? I'd say that in terms of having our own BioOrbit space station, etc., which is in the vision timeline, that would be a little bit later on, once we then need all of that space, etc. So I'd say permanent facilities 2030 within a commercial space station.
Fantastic, thank you, Katie. And another one here, Dr. King, what would you say ETA of a product to market based on BioOrbit's research results?
Yeah, brill. So I'd say product to market in terms of a drug that we can then buy, etc. That's a little bit further down the line, but because that's like mass manufacture, you have to go through the approval stages, etc. But in terms of our revenue, that would start way before then, when you're doing the co-development alongside pharma. So in terms of that, using our results to then develop a drug, that could start in 2027, 2028. So not that far away, but then you have to go through all the different milestones, etc., which would then probably take you, well, again, it's maybe 3-4 years, but that then could take further. That could take 7 years, depending on the maturity of the drug that you're then co-developing, etc. So that's a little bit outside of our control, but we can start getting heavy revenue way before something is actually on the market. And this is a model, a CDMO, contract development manufacturing organization, which is very standard in the pharma industry. So we'd be one of those, just one that uses space.
Right, and it seems like the addressable market is huge, right? Because it's not just cancer drugs; it's everything. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, of course. So it's not just anti-cancer antibodies that we're looking at, although they're projected to be around just under 300 billion, that market, by 2030. But really, it's the whole antibody market, and that's looking at about $500 billion by 2030. And I think that that's probably an underestimate, to be honest, because this class of drugs are very successful and are gaining, they're just, the market's growing so quickly. So, and it's not just antibodies, but it's other protein drugs as well. So hormones, etc. that we can like help to address some of their problems there, change the stability, help to patents that are expiring to be extended. So really there are a lot of different use cases coming from one platform, which is a very exciting place to be.
Really, really exciting, fascinating to hear. Alex, we'll go back over to you. But if anyone's got any questions while Alex is talking for Katie or Alex, please continue to post. But Alex, what's next for the Accelerator, and how can people get involved, or what's coming up?
Yes, thank you for the question. So as I said before, we're closing down applications end of this week. So again, Sunday midnight Pacific time for kind of America's companies, and midnight London time on Sunday for kind of rest of the world. So we have 2 different links, one for each side. So please do visit our website to sign up. Invite people to sign up. The application process and the form that we ask you to fill out is very, very simple. Shouldn't take more than 10-15 minutes. If it takes more than that, that's probably likely you don't know your company well enough. So I suggest spending the time to do it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, to the rest of the team, to some of our alumni if you want. Yes, we're just very excited to see where we will be, I guess, in 12 months' time, where we do this again.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think that's another thing that's, we've always found that people really, really love is just kind of becoming part of that alumni and getting that network of people and people in the same boat as you and people who are raising at the same time as you and going through the same experience. So I think that's something that's also really powerful and kind of bonding with people who go through the program. We've got another question, Katie, if you don't mind. It's, hi, Dr. King. Great presentation. What are you and BioOrbit most excited or looking forward to with your research within the next 5 years?
Oh yeah, great question. I mean, 5 years, a lot can happen in 5 years. And so I'm really excited. Within those 5 years, we've got a lot of tech demonstrations going on. We've got, as I say, 2 launches this year, and then we've got another 1 or 2 for 2026. So those are big in-orbit demonstrations to then show what we're doing. But in the next 5 years, by that point, we will be able to have big contracts with pharma. So what I'm excited about is then in 5 years' time, be working with big pharma to co-develop the drugs that of our future. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, and the team growing, and really just making that impact, which we can do within those 5 years. So I'm very excited about that.
Thank you, Katie. Alex, someone's asked for your email, so you can post that in the chat to them.
Please do reach out to me directly through LinkedIn.
Katie, we'll take one more question if you don't mind, Katie. Is that all right?
I would actually want to just say one thing that you said before about the team in the Accelerator program, and that has been so critical. So the people who I was part of the cohort with in Mission 12, being able to help each other through that has been really critical. Some of the companies are at different stages, but then being able to speak with those that are at a similar stage to you and help each other through, getting advice from each other and sharing your learnings has been absolutely critical, because I think also the founder journey is can be very tough. And so it's important to be able to share those highs and lows with others that are going through the same or have been through it as well. So I'd say that network of very ambitious people trying to build their visions and change the future, and then coming together and sharing those experiences, critical.
Yeah, I think people say it can be a very lonely place, can't it, at points, and not knowing who to go to and turn to. So that's really fantastic to hear, and we always hear people say that, so it's great to hear you as well. Katie, it's another question from Fernando. He's really interested in finding out a bit more about your team at BioOrbit, and if there's anything you can say about current partnerships that you have.
Yeah, sure. So our team covers all the different areas that we need. I think for what we're trying to achieve, no one skill set can do it. We don't just need space engineers, we don't just need pharma or anything. We need all of that coming together in a very slick manner. So our team currently covers those bases. We've got our space engineering team used to building satellites. We've got project manager who has taken life science payloads to the ISS before, so leading us through all of that paperwork with the European Space Agency and NASA. Very, very critical. And then again, oncology researchers, protein crystallization experts, all coming in. So we have to work together and all learn from each other in order to then make this possible. And I think that's something, it's something I always say to my team is like, none of you can do this on your own. We all need each other to push and get this through. So I'd say I'm very excited about that, and we're growing. So those skill sets, as I say, the team's growing over the next year. So that's very exciting. And in terms of partnerships, so looking at partnerships with different infrastructure companies, I can't name them right now, and then also with some letters of support and early stage with biotech and big pharma, etc. So very exciting future, and really looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you, Katie. That's fascinating. How many people have you got in your team at the moment?
I think we're about 10 in total now, and that's all been within less than 6 months. So we've grown. Our first bit of investment came through in June, July, and we've just gone since then. And as I say, delivered our first payload. So I'm very, very proud of the team, and we're growing very quickly.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic to hear. I think that's all of the questions. But thank you for everyone for being so engaged, and thank you so much for Katie for joining us, and Alex for explaining all that fascinating and awesome data. But sorry, no one could see me, but never mind. we have these issues with these live events, but thank you so much. And as I said earlier, any further questions for Alex or Katie, post them in the chat, and we're happy to answer them offline. You'll be able to watch this again on the Seraphim Space LinkedIn channel. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.